She sits across from you with a soft smile, her words draped in warmth, her tone, whispering the same ancient plea women have offered men for centuries. Give me comfort, hold me, make me feel safe, shield me from the sharp edges of existence. Every syllable seems like a balm, a promise of peace, a summons for you to dissolve your hardness and become the pillow she craves. And yet, if you obey, if you surrender to that request and make comfort your offering, something strange, something brutal, something almost cruel will unfold. The very same woman who begged for your shelter will quietly recoil. Her eyes will glaze over, her attraction will diminish, and without ever speaking it aloud, she will fall not for you, but for the man who denied her the very comfort she swore she needed. Why does this contradiction tear through the theater of human desire? Why does she drift toward the man who does not soothe but unsettles, who does not cradle but challenges, who does not bend but stands like an iron pillar against her storms? Nietzsche understood. He saw with terrifying clarity that beneath every plea for ease lies the will to overcome. Not comfort, but struggle, fuels vitality. Not safety, but danger ignites the spark of life. Woman may ask for comfort, but she cannot love the man who becomes comfort incarnate, because love itself is drawn to power, to the overflowing strength of life, asserting itself against decay. Nietzsche's insight is not merely about romance, but about the core of existence itself. Life is will to power, not will to peace. And so the paradox reveals itself. She speaks the language of comfort, but her instincts are wired to hunger for the man who denies it, the man who embodies the flame of becoming the man, who stands not as a pillow, but as a storm. This is the thesis. To understand why this is true, you must enter the labyrinth of human psychology where Nietzsche's hammer smashes illusions. Begin with the hidden dynamic. When she whispers for comfort, she is not lying. She feels the weight of existence, the loneliness, the exhaustion of carrying herself through endless cycles of chaos and disappointment. Her plea is genuine. Yet beneath that surface plea lies something deeper, something even she does not fully recognize. Comfort is death. Comfort is the slow suffocation of desire. Comfort is the silent killer of polarity. For if a man becomes nothing but softness, he abandons the very essence of what draws her, the unmovable core, the rising fire, the unyielding will that does not dissolve, but dominates. The common response, tragically, is obedience. Men, in their eagerness to win affection, fold themselves into cushions. They listen to her words instead of her instincts. They make themselves endlessly available, endlessly accommodating, endlessly comforting. They bring flowers, soothing words, constant reassurance, and endless attention. And at first she smiles. She may even praise them. But soon, inevitably, she feels something dark creeping in. Her admiration wanes. Her body withdraws. She looks to the side when another man enters the room, the man who does not bend, the man who seems to walk with an inner storm that no request for comfort could ever extinguish. The collapse begins here, for the man who obeyed her words becomes invisible to her instincts. She cannot trust him to lead her beyond herself, for he has proven he will surrender to her lowest desires rather than summon her to her highest becoming. The power response is merciless yet magnetic. It is the man who hears her plea for comfort but does not collapse into it. He acknowledges it. He may even smile at it, but he does not make it the foundation of his being. Instead, he denies her in the very moment she seeks refuge, not by cruelty, but by presence, not by apathy, but by strength. He embodies Nietzsche's higher man, the one who does not flee from life's chaos, but thrives in it, who does not lower himself into mediocrity for approval, but demands that those who stand beside him rise. This man does not live to comfort, but to create, to dominate, to carve himself against the hard granite of existence. And in his refusal to collapse into softness, he becomes the most magnetic force in her life. She resents him, she protests, but she is drawn inexorably, like iron filings to a magnet, to the man who denies her comfort, because in him she senses life itself ferocious, unconquerable, intoxicating. The perception shift is violent yet liberating. She begins to realize, unconsciously at first, that what she truly craves is not a pillow but a pillar. Not a man who dissolves into her arms, but a man who stands against her storms and refuses to break. She discovers that the denial of comfort is not rejection, but revelation. It reveals to her that she is capable of more than she thought, that she is not a fragile creature in need of endless soothing, but a being capable of transformation, through the presence of a man who will not let her sink. Her attraction is not to ease, but to expansion. She falls for the man who denies comfort, because he awakens in her the same fire Nietzsche saw as the core of life, the will to power. But here lies the greater truth. This dynamic is not confined to women. It is the law of existence itself. Comfort is the siren song that lulls all of us into decay. Denial of comfort, the embrace of struggle, is what forges greatness. Nietzsche did not merely describe women's attraction. He revealed the architecture of vitality itself. And so, the man who denies comfort is not just more attractive, he is more alive. He becomes the embodiment of life's highest demand, to will beyond what is easy, to affirm the struggle, to become more than what you were yesterday. Imagine the stage of modern romance. A man, well-meaning and tender, hears her confession late at night. She says she is tired. She says she is broken. She says she only wants to rest in his arms forever. He, believing he has uncovered the secret of intimacy, gives her everything she requests. He holds her, shields her, softens himself into a permanent comfort zone. He becomes her safety net, her caretaker, her emotional nurse. And in that instant, without knowing it, he begins to bury the very flame of attraction that once drew her in. Because while her lips thanked him, her instincts began to question him. Can he be trusted to lead her beyond the prison of her emotions if he so willingly becomes a prisoner with her? The collapse accelerates. The man feels her slipping away, and so he doubles down. More comfort, more reassurance, more obedience to her words. But the more he gives, the less she wants. She does not articulate it because she cannot consciously frame it, yet her body knows. Her instincts know. Something in her resists the man who bends so easily, because somewhere deep in her nervous system lives the ancient truth. Life is not sustained by comfort, but by challenge. She cannot admire the man who shields her from difficulty if he himself is too weak to stand inside it. And without admiration, desire evaporates. Now consider the man who denies her request. She comes to him with the same plea, but he does not fold. He does not abandon her. He does not mock her. He does not comfort her. Instead, he looks into her eyes with a stillness that does not bend. He says little, perhaps nothing at all, but his very presence communicates that her weakness will not devour him. She may cry, she may rage, she may beg, but beneath it all, she feels something she cannot feel with the comforting man. Trust. Trust that if he will not collapse for her, he will not collapse for life. Trust that if he can resist her siren song, he can resist the storms of the world. Trust that beside him, she will not sink deeper into the swamp of her emotions, but rise into the fire of her own becoming. And this is where Nietzsche's vision pierces us like a blade. For he taught that life is not about the avoidance of pain, but the affirmation of it. To live is to suffer, he said, but to survive is to find meaning in that suffering. Woman does not fall for the man who hides her from suffering, because she knows, whether consciously or instinctively, that such a man is lying. Suffering is inescapable. Life will not spare her. But the man who faces suffering without flinching, the man who does not soothe but strengthens, is the man who tells her without words, "We will not escape life, but we will conquer it." And that is the man she falls for. Think of the way attraction itself works. It is not born from sameness, but polarity. It is not born from two souls melting into comfort, but from the electric charge between strength and surrender, between hardness and softness, between denial and desire. If a man becomes nothing but comfort, he dissolves polarity. He smothers the very current that drives romance. But if a man denies comfort, if he insists on standing tall in his unyielding flame, polarity ignites. She feels his strength not as cruelty, but as an invitation into a higher form of herself. She is drawn, against her conscious will, to the man who refuses to bend. At this point, we must pause, because the brutal truth is almost unbearable. She does not want what she says she wants. And you, as a man, must decide which voice to obey, the words that fall from her lips, or the instincts that pulse beneath her skin. If you obey her words, you become her pillow, and in time, her contempt. If you obey her instincts, you become her storm, her anchor, her intoxicating obsession. Which will you choose? Narrative checkpoint. The revelation so far is savage. She pleads for comfort, but her desire is for strength. She begs for peace, but her attraction is to war. The man who gives her what she asks loses her, while the man who denies her becomes irresistible. But here is the deeper question. What is it in the architecture of life itself that makes denial of comfort not only attractive, but necessary? And what does it mean for you, as a man who seeks not just to win her body, but to master his own becoming? The answer is darker and more dangerous than you imagine. Nietzsche shattered the illusions that comfort was the goal of existence. He saw what few dared to confront, that comfort is the breeding ground of decay, and that every living thing, when caged in safety for too long, begins to rot. Life, he declared, is will to power, not will to survive, not will to be comfortable, but will to grow, to expand, to overcome, to press against resistance and prove itself stronger. This is why she, even when her lips whisper for comfort, cannot give her soul to the man who offers it. Her blood knows what her words cannot admit, that only in the presence of power does life feel fully alive. Imagine the mountain climber. He does not ascend the jagged peaks because they are comfortable. He ascends because they are dangerous, because every step tests his strength, his lungs, his will to endure. And in that danger, he comes alive. In the exhaustion, in the pain, in the risk of death, he feels the most vital pulse of his existence. Nietzsche knew that man, when shielded from hardship, loses the very essence that makes him human. He becomes domesticated, like an animal fattened in a cage, stripped of his ferocity. And woman, in her instinctive wisdom, senses this truth. She cannot admire the man who makes himself a cage. She craves the man who makes himself a mountain. But what is comfort if not a cage? It whispers to you that you are safe, that nothing will challenge you, that you can rest forever. Yet what is safety without danger to sharpen it? What is rest without effort to justify it? Comfort without struggle is not comfort, it is stagnation. And stagnation is death disguised as peace. She knows this. That is why her attraction dies when you become nothing but softness. Because deep inside, she does not want to rot with you in the cage of comfort. She wants to be pulled into the storm where her blood races, where her heart pounds, where her existence feels sharp, dangerous, and alive. This is why Nietzsche spoke of the Bermensch, the higher man, the one who refuses to be broken by the weight of suffering, but instead transforms it into strength. He saw that ordinary men seek to numb themselves, to flee into ease, into religion, into systems that promise eternal safety. But the higher man says yes to life in all its brutality. He denies comfort not because he despises peace, but because he knows peace without struggle is poison. He says yes to suffering because suffering is the forge that creates greatness. He says yes to the chaos of existence because it sharpens him into something extraordinary. Now look again at the woman's paradox. She is not irrational when she desires the man who denies her comfort. She is not cruel when she loses attraction to the man who obeys her plea for safety. She is obeying life itself. She is obeying the law Nietzsche uncovered. Life admires the overflowing of power, not the retreat into ease. Her attraction is not a conscious choice, but an instinctual alignment with the essence of vitality. She does not crave the man who hides from the storm. She craves the man who is the storm. Here is the darker layer. The denial of comfort is not simply a strategy to seduce her. It is the existential demand of existence itself. If you deny her comfort, but secretly live for comfort in your own life, she will sense the fraud. She will see through it. Because denial of comfort is not a mask you put on for her. It is an orientation toward life itself. You must deny comfort in your body, in your habits, in your ambitions. You must live in the storm. Only then does your presence communicate the truth she cannot resist, that you are not a man who plays at power, but a man who is power. This changes everything. Attraction is not a game of tactics, but a revelation of being. You cannot simply mimic the posture of denial. You must embody it. You must become the man who refuses the easy path, the man who welcomes resistance, the man who affirms suffering as the price of greatness. And then, without effort, without words, without manipulation, she will fall not because you withheld comfort strategically, but because you became the very force of life her instincts cannot turn away from. So we return to the haunting question. Why does she want comfort but fall for the man who denies it? Because comfort is a lie, and she cannot fall in love with lies. She can only fall for the truth, even when that truth terrifies her, even when that truth wounds her, even when that truth denies her pleas. The truth is that life is suffering, and only in facing it with strength does one transcend it. The man who denies comfort embodies this truth. And so she falls. Narrative checkpoint. The philosophy is now unveiled. She wants comfort because her lips echo the human longing for peace. But she falls for denial because life itself demands power. Yet the dangerous question now emerges. How does this raw law of existence play out in the brutal theater of modern romance, where men are taught to serve, to obey, to soften? What happens when the will to power collides with a culture that worships comfort? The answer is not only unsettling, it is incendiary. Look at the world around you. Every voice in modern culture whispers to men the same poisonous sermon. Be softer, be gentler, be safer, be endlessly supportive. Never risk conflict, never challenge her, never stand in defiance. Men are trained to become providers of comfort in every sense. Comfort financially, comfort emotionally, comfort sexually, comfort spiritually. They are told that if they provide endless reassurance, if they remove every rough edge, if they become a servant to her moods, they will be loved. But the reality, brutal and undeniable, is that this training creates precisely the type of man women cannot desire. You see it in countless stories. The man who waits on her hand and foot, who rearranges his entire life to keep her satisfied, who kneels in worship of her emotions, who cancels his mission to orbit hers, this man eventually finds himself discarded, not because he was evil, not because he was abusive, but because he suffocated the very fire that attraction needs to breathe. She begged for comfort, and he gave it. But in doing so, he extinguished his own polarity, and with it, her desire. Meanwhile, the man she cannot stop thinking about, the one who lives rent-free in her mind, is often the one who denied her comfort, the one who did not drop everything for her, the one who did not bend when she tested him, the one who refused to apologize for his strength, his mission, his unyielding center. She may even call him cruel. She may even swear she hates him, but her body betrays her words. Her desire betrays her complaints. Because it is not cruelty she responds to, it is the refusal to collapse into her comfort-seeking. It is the power she senses radiating from him, the raw aliveness of a man who does not exist to soothe, but to lead. This is the paradox of female psychology. On the surface, she craves comfort because she feels the unbearable burden of her own vulnerability. But at a deeper level, she despises the man who offers it too freely. She does not trust him. She cannot. Because if he obeys her plea, she knows he will obey anything. He has no spine. He has no center. And a man without a center is a man she cannot follow, cannot admire, cannot desire. Attraction is built not on comfort, but on polarity, not on safety, but on danger. She must feel the storm in him, because only then does she believe he can face the storms of life itself. And what of the male psychology? Here is the tragedy. Men want to be loved. They want to be chosen. They want to believe that if they give enough softness, they will be rewarded with loyalty. But this is the deception. When a man sacrifices his strength for comfort, he is not loved, he is used. She may accept his gifts, she may enjoy his presence, but she does not fall into him. She does not admire him, and admiration is the seed of love. Without admiration, all you have is utility. Nietzsche would laugh at the modern condition, for he saw this collapse long before it came. He warned that cultures obsessed with comfort would decay into mediocrity. He warned that men who lived for peace rather than struggle would become hollow, resentful, weak. And what is the modern nice guy, if not the perfect embodiment of this decay? A man who denies his will to power in the hope of being loved, and in doing so, ensures he will never be truly desired. The denial of comfort, then, is not cruelty, but necessity. It is not the rejection of her needs, but the recognition of her deeper truth. A woman cannot fall for the man who bends to her lowest instincts, because love itself is built on reverence, and reverence cannot exist without strength. She must feel that he is bigger than her storms, bigger than her moods, bigger than her pleas for softness. Only then does she surrender, not because he forced her, not because he manipulated her, but because her very biology tells her, this man can carry me into life, not away from it. But what of those who hear this truth and shrink from it? What of the men who say, if I deny her comfort, she will leave me? Nietzsche would thunder back, then let her leave. Because if your entire existence is built on supplying comfort, you are not a man. You are an anesthetic, and no woman will ever truly give her soul to an anesthetic. So here is the merciless demand. You must stand in defiance of comfort, not only for her sake, but for your own. You must become the man who denies the easy path in every realm of life. You must become the man who embraces the storm, who thrives in danger, who refuses to rot in the padded cell of modern softness. Only then will she fall. And more importantly, only then will you rise. Now the pattern stands naked before us. She says she wants comfort, but what she truly wants is to be tested by power. She begs for peace, but what she truly craves is to be ignited by fire. She swears she wants a man who bends to her feelings, but she falls for the man who refuses to bend at all. This is not hypocrisy. This is not manipulation. This is life speaking through her instincts, demanding that she align herself, not with what is easy, but with what is strong. And so the question thunders like a drumbeat. What kind of man will you become? Will you be the comfort giver, endlessly bending, endlessly soothing, endlessly dissolving until she cannot feel you at all? Or will you be the storm bringer, the man who denies the comfort of mediocrity, who embodies the will to power so completely that her body, her heart, and her very soul are pulled into your orbit against her will? Nietzsche's revelation is merciless. He would tell you that you have no choice, that life itself will punish you for choosing comfort. Not only will she leave you, but you will leave yourself. Your muscles will atrophy. Your spirit will dim. Your ambitions will wither. Comfort will strangle you with invisible hands until you wake one day and realize you are not a man, but a shadow. Comfort kills twice first your power, then your desire. And that is why you must deny it with the same ferocity you would deny poison in your veins. So what is the alternative? It is not cruelty. It is not apathy. It is not neglect. It is strength. It is living as the pillar, not the pillow. It is being the man who can look her in the eye when she begs for comfort and remain unshaken. It is being the man who does not flinch when she tests you, who does not bend when she pushes, who does not apologize for the fire you carry in your chest. It is being the man whose entire life is oriented not toward escape, but toward expansion. Because in the end, she does not fall for denial itself. She falls for what denial represents. It represents a man who will not sell his soul for her approval. It represents a man who values growth over peace, creation over rest, fire over comfort. It represents life itself, raw and untamed, refusing to be caged. That is what she falls for. That is what she cannot resist. And that is what you must become. So let the final truth strike you. The denial of comfort is not about her at all. It is about you. It is about whether you will answer Nietzsche's challenge to affirm life, to embrace suffering, to wield your will to power like a sword. It is about whether you will choose the path of the herd, soft and comfortable and invisible, or the path of the higher man, dangerous, undeniable, and unforgettable. You must decide. Will you be the man she leans on for comfort until she no longer feels you, until she drifts away into the arms of another? Or will you be the man she surrenders to, because your very presence refuses to collapse, because your very soul radiates the terrifying beauty of life, embraced without apology? The choice is yours. But understand this. Once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. Comfort is death. Denial of comfort is power. And in that power lies the only love, the only desire, the only reverence worth having. Now stand and choose